With that, I will just direct you all to the agenda itself, which you have a copy of. It has a number of very detailed policy recommendations and demands, and we are very much looking forward to engaging the more than 72% of Minnesotans who do not want the governor, or not the governor, the government, to interfere with their access to really important health care, which abortion is part of pregnancy care and needs to be available to everyone.
That's right.
I will pass it now over to Shayla Walker from our Justice.
Peace, everyone. My name is Shayla Walker. I'm the Executive Director at our Justice. We are your local abortion fund and reproductive justice organization. Reproductive justice is an organizing framework and vision developed by Black women, where everyone has the power, resources, and autonomy to make decisions about their own bodies, choose whether or not to have children, and raise those children in safe and supportive communities. That includes safe, legal, and accessible abortion care. At our Justice, we see every day just how many barriers exist to this vision of reproductive justice. We provide direct financial assistance for abortion access because our healthcare system has made the cost of abortion, among everything else, pretty inaccessible. That means that every day, one of our staff, mostly myself, or our volunteers, opens up the spreadsheet of requests from people across Minnesota and beyond who cannot afford their abortions. In 2019, we had 241 requests. 2020, 455 requests. 2021, over 1,000 requests. Today, we are sitting at nearly 700 requests, and it's just the middle of the year. And we just overturned Roe, so who knows what that's going to bring. In addition to paying for abortions, we help provide travel support and hotel stays because clinics are clustered on the eastern and metro areas of the state, and patients have to take time off of work to travel. We provide free Plan B deliveries because of the cost and stigma associated with Plan B limits people from getting the care that they need. These are real systemic barriers that people in power put in place to make it as difficult as possible to exercise our bodily autonomy through abortion access. The effects of these barriers have always fallen disproportionately on Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, queer folks, trans folks, disabled folks, people with low incomes. It is so powerful that today we are able to introduce the Minnesota Beyond Roe Leadership Agenda for Abortion Access. This is a moment of celebration, but also a moment of devastation and serious urgency. We are here at the end of Roe. We watch more and more states ban abortions across the country, and we know that spaces like these, filled with people who are dedicated to directly protecting and expanding abortion care, are going to become even more important. Reproductive justice is about building strong, vibrant communities around the idea that everyone, I mean everyone, deserves bodily autonomy and safe, accessible health care. As long as our justice is still fielding requests from people who, 1, cannot afford their abortion, 2, need support navigating unnecessary restrictions on abortion care, and 3, dodging post-Roe attacks, our work is not done. So I thank you for being here and look forward to working with you all.
Hi everyone, I am Senator Lindsay Port. I am here today as one of the founders and co-chairs of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus. The work of supporting Minnesotans' decisions of if and when to start a family, to receive accurate medical information in both educational settings and during the healthcare process, and to access affordable reproductive care free from harassment and fear has been ongoing work in our communities across the state for decades. We started this caucus because it's time that the legislature makes it a priority at the Capitol to support the work that's already being done, as Shayla said, in our communities. Access to reproductive health care and so many connected issues are broadly supported by Minnesotans. And they are also more under attack than ever, as we saw today with the Supreme Court ruling regarding abortion. The ruling outright overturned Roe and explicitly put on the chopping block the right to contraception, same-sex relationships, and same-sex marriage by extremist judges that do not reflect the realities faced by Minnesotans, nor the broad beliefs of Minnesotans. Our caucus was formed as a commitment to support the work that's already being done in our communities to fight extremist policies and to boldly champion reproductive freedom for all Minnesotans. We proudly sign on to the Post-Roe leadership agenda, and we will fight to enact all of the policies laid out. I am already the lead author in the Senate of the Patients' Right to Know Act and the Reproductive Freedom Defense Act. And Senator Jen McEwen, who couldn't be here today, is the lead Senate author of the PRO Act. We understand that the work in front of us is challenging, but we know that all across Minnesota, community members have been working on these issues for years, and we are excited to partner with them to make sure that in Minnesota, people can access the reproductive health care that they need in their communities, free from harassment, and without fear of violence. That work is ongoing, but we're not afraid of it. And we're standing here today committing to Minnesotans that we're ready to lead. I will also add that I am standing here as a senator, but I'm also standing here as a mother of 2 daughters. And as I left my house today, my youngest gave me a hug. And as she wrapped her little arms around me, all I could think about was, we failed her. As a society, we have made it our point to work to make tomorrow better for future generations, more free, more just, so that our children can more fully live their lives. That has been the experience of every generation in this country. And today, my daughters woke up with less rights than they had yesterday. They woke up with less rights than I did, than I had, and that their grandparents had. We have failed a generation in this moment. But I am committed, and I know that our caucus is committed, to fighting, to not standing by and accepting that this is the reality for women, for people of color, for trans folks who need care. We are committed to continuing to fight. I appreciate you coming today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Athena Hollins. I am a representative of District 66B. And it's a somber day, but I am happy to be here with my amazing pro-choice colleagues and hardworking advocates from the community. I had a really hard time writing these remarks because I am so angry and it doesn't feel like anything is going to come out appropriately. The Supreme Court decision isn't about protecting anyone. It's about controlling women and making their decisions for them. It's a product of an old man system of governance. Anti-abortion laws will be used by bad people to terrorize, control, and further marginalize people with uteruses. People will die needlessly, suffer needlessly, and go to jail. Women will live in fear. 6 conservative justices are overstepping their judicial roles into legislative arena and are stripping us of our rights to make our own decisions for our own health. That's right. Let's call it what it is. Forced birth. States controlled by the GOP will force people to give birth or label them criminals. Across the nation right now, there are laws going into effect that criminalize abortion in all cases, without an exception for incest or rape. I want to be really clear about what that means. Rapists will force their victims to carry their children. Fathers will force their daughters to carry their incestual offspring. This is not hyperbole or exaggeration. As of 3 hours ago, it is a fact that in Missouri, victims of incest and rape are forbidden to control their own bodies and will go to jail if they try to. When we look at this decision, I think a lot of us are talking just about abortion, but Justice Thomas's concurrence makes it abundantly clear. They are going to try to take everything from us. They are coming for our birth control. They will recriminalize the LGBTQ community, a community of which I am a part of. They will not be satisfied until everyone is forced to live according to their values and no others. Because none of this is about protection of lives. It's about control. The Supreme Court does not care about our lives beyond controlling them. In the same week that they have eliminated our reproductive freedoms, they have made it even easier for our children to be shot in their schools. The United States has the highest maternal mortality rate among developed countries, and now will be one of a tiny sliver of countries where reproductive rights are not guaranteed. Like most issues of oppression, our communities of color will be the most harmed by this decision. For people of color, birth is a high-risk medical situation. In Minnesota, Black people are more than twice as likely as white people to die from pregnancy-related causes. Forcing people to give birth in an inequitable system like ours is unethical and immoral. This Supreme Court decision will definitely not end the practice of abortion. It will just make the decision available only for the privileged and rich. Unrestrict Minnesota and their expert partners and advocates from the community have done an incredible job of outlining the way forward with the release of this agenda. We need to repeal outdated and unnecessary abortion restrictions. We need to protect providers and patients. And we need to rise to the moment and expand access to abortion care. Minnesota will remain a safe place as long as we are able to center community and human rights in our politics. It is absolutely crucial that we continue electing leaders who will protect the rights of abortion for our citizens and will make Minnesota a sanctuary state for people across the United States who are seeking health care they deserve when their own state has failed them. Trusting women with their reproductive health decisions is fundamental to our understanding of human dignity, equality, and equity. The time to fight is now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'm State Representative Kelly Morrison, and I am proud to be here as one of the founders and co-chairs of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus to support our Minnesota Beyond Roe leadership agenda for abortion access. As the only physician in the House and the only obstetrician gynecologist in the legislature, it's been my obligation to be a clear and strong voice for protecting and expanding access to comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion care. But we find ourselves in new and uncharted waters with today's Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe versus Wade. With laws being proposed and passed all over the country to limit or ban access to abortion, there is now extreme urgency to act here in Minnesota to protect patients and providers. Texas's SB 8 banned abortion 2 weeks after a missed period and deputizes private citizens to sue providers or anyone who in any way helps a pregnant person seek an abortion in that state. Other states are passing equally extreme laws. In Oklahoma, where a law was just passed that prohibits abortion anytime after conception. In Missouri, legislators are pushing a proposal to allow Missouri residents to sue anyone, anywhere who helps a Missouri resident end their pregnancy. And while abortion remains legal here in Minnesota, and that's important to emphasize for patients seeking care today, we will likely soon be surrounded by states outlawing abortion. I'm proud to have introduced several pieces of legislation that are included in our post-Roe agenda today. The PRO Act, or Protect Reproductive Options Act, establishes the fundamental right of Minnesotans to make individual decisions about reproductive health care, including contraception, abortion, and pregnancy, and prevents politicians from interfering with a person's fundamental right to make their own reproductive health care decisions. The Patient's Right to Know Act gives medical providers the right to provide medically accurate, evidence-based information to their patients without worrying about interference from politicians, and it protects patients from receiving medically inaccurate information. It would also repeal the ironically named Woman's Right to Know Act. The Reproductive Freedom Defense Act protects patients and providers who are sued and criminalized under restrictive abortion and reproductive health care policies in other states. I look forward to advancing this agenda and getting these bills passed in the next session. There is urgency in this work. Minnesotans are depending on us to protect and expand access to abortion care and to protect patients and providers here in Minnesota and those who seek care and refuge here. Abortion is a critical and intrinsic part of reproductive health care, and decisions about this care should be left to individuals and their medical providers. Abortion is health care. It must be protected in Minnesota for the health and safety of Minnesotans and those who may need to seek care here at this pivotal moment in our nation's history. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I first want to thank everybody for being here, the legislators and the allies in this moment in history. I'm Senate DFL Leader Melissa Lopez-Franzen, and I just want to start by saying that today's Supreme Court decision, radical, extremist decision, is an egregious attack on the fundamental rights of tens of millions of women across our state and our country. It's a radical decision directly contradicting the confirmation testimony of several Trump-appointed judges who misled U.S. senators into believing that they, as judges, considered Roe versus Wade settled law. Today's decision is the latest in extreme decisions from this court, as has been alluded to. To be clear, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned a constitutional freedom for millions of Americans today. We know that this day was coming following the initial leak of a draft from several weeks ago, but its arrival is still a dark day for our country. Already, South Dakota, right on our border, has banned abortion with their trigger law that went into effect immediately when Roe versus Wade was overturned, and other states will quickly follow. Abortion is health care, plain and simple. And thankfully, it remains legal here in the state of Minnesota. Today's decision, however, is a stark reminder that we cannot take this fundamental right for granted. The decision also paves the way for other rights and precedents to be stripped and overturned. Let us be clear, the results of this decision will disproportionately hurt, impact people of color, those living in poverty, and those from low-income households, and will lead to worse outcomes for millions of families. When today's official decision was only a leaked draft in May, the Senate DFL moved to bring 9 bills to the Senate floor to strengthen reproductive rights and healthcare access, fund programs for maternal health and children's health, and protect the fundamental right to privacy and healthcare decisions to Minnesotans because they deserve it, and the Republican majority voted them down. In fact, they said nothing. Each of these efforts were blocked. While today is a dark day, it strengthens our resolve to fight for Minnesotans' freedom to make their own decisions about their own bodies and a legislative agenda that protects people's health. We will fight back, make no mistake. Senate Republicans and other far-right politicians are clear about their intentions. Today's decision will embolden them to strip away the fundamental rights of other areas of our settled law. Democrats will not go back, and we will not back down. All of us are here with fight. We'll fight tooth and nail against any efforts to undermine privacy rights and healthcare freedom for all Minnesotans. And this is a very personal issue. We all have personal stories. I myself have gone through many miscarriages, several too painful to talk about. But what is more painful is to know that after I've had 2 healthy boys, that people after me will have more pain and suffer more because their rights were stripped away, because their health care and the compassion of care that they should have today has been overturned. We need a Democratic pro-choice majority in the Minnesota Senate, and we need to have it in the Minnesota House. And we need to keep our governor, who supports the fundamental right for women to choose what to do with their bodies. This is extremism at its core. And when government overreaches, the people decide. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Abina. I am the campaign director of the Unrestrict Minnesota Coalition. I just want to take a minute to talk about what's next for the Unrestrict Minnesota Coalition. We started 3 years ago with the goal to repeal Minnesota's harmful restrictions on abortion care. But our work is so much more. Our coalition works to protect, expand, and destigmatize access to abortion care and all reproductive health care in Minnesota through public education, advocacy, and the law. Our vision is to achieve full reproductive justice, an organizing framework that was started by Black women where every person has the ability to decide if, when, and how to become a parent, raise healthy children in safe and thriving communities, and have gender freedom and bodily autonomy. We are led by a multiracial coalition of LGBTQ+ advocates, faith communities, clinicians, activists, doctors, abortion funds, lawyers, organizers, healthcare clinics, doulas, podcasts, and so many more. 3/4 of Minnesotans agree that when a person decides to have an abortion, it should be safe, legal, and free from punishment or judgment. This agenda that we have introduced today is in line with our community's want and need, and we need to advance reproductive justice in our state. We look forward to working with our caucus members and partners in all levels of society to expand abortion access now. Together, our movement will be marching in massive mobilization on July 17th. Our future March for Abortion Access is an action for everyone to show our leaders and our country what Minnesota really stands for in this historic moment. We invite you all to join us and to learn more about our work at unrestrictminnesota.org. Thank you all.
All right, so obviously we are in a public health crisis, a racial and economic justice crisis, and a gender equity crisis. And we are very happy to take your questions now.
I had a quick question about the PRO Act specifically. Two different things could happen. One could be some sort of civil action against a provider or even a auntie or a navigator or whoever assisted. There also could be criminal actions if some state criminalizes and seeks to extradite, et cetera. What could the PRO Act do as the state of Minnesota to defend against both of those potentially?
Kelly, do you want to
You
speak
don't
to it?
have to be a lawyer.
I think you may be referring to the Reproductive Freedom Defense Act.
That's correct.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And that was introduced in an effort to protect patients and providers from actions in other states. And this is new law. This kind of law that was passed with SB 8 has never been done before. So I think this will be an evolution. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm told by my lawyer friends that there are a lot of unknowns. And so this will be probably an evolving issue. But this is our first effort in defending our patients and providers here in Minnesota.
Well, the governor would have to agree to extradite someone, so that's unlikely to happen under the current.
Correct.
Is there other things, like the state defend the people or do other things to protect them from out of state or
From criminalization out of state. Yeah, that is the intent, and I think the Attorney General has also indicated that he would weigh in on this as well.
Do we have other questions?
How are you guys
Well, I mean, the first thing is we're working really hard to put out an agenda of what laws need to change, which obviously is not immediate. But we're also working with our partners who are part of the Unrestricted Minnesota Coalition, clinics and abortion funds and practical support organizations to raise awareness of their existence, drive fundraising efforts to support the abortion funds and practical support organizations in particular. They're going to need even more resources. Their requests are just going to become more overwhelming than they already are. We're helping to provide a space for those groups to be in coordination with each other. And Shayla, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about some of the regional organizing that's already underway.
So yeah, what we've been working on is an ad hoc group. It's a direct service ad hoc group, and it's full of providers and funds around the region, setting up signal text so we know who has the next appointment, setting up different fund streams from Wisconsin to Minnesota, just so that, folks in Wisconsin, if they have to come to Minnesota for their care, they're able to get additional funding from the Wisconsin funds. And so those are just a couple of different things that we've been working on. But yeah, mostly fundraising because people are going to need money. We're going to need money for hotels. I know there's a lot of folks who are like, oh, I'll open up my home. Not everybody wants to go in a stranger's home, and people want to bring their children with or their partner. And there are a lot of privacy and sensitivity issues. We don't really need rooms. We need money so we can pay for hotel rooms. Things like that. Spiral Collective, who's a local abortion practical support group, we just did a training last night on how to do transportation to and from clinics. Yeah, we're going to need more money for trainings because it's just volunteer based, and BIPOC people working for free to help folks. We've already gone back. We don't need to go that far back. So.
Senator Lopez-Franson, could you talk about maximizing the political power of this issue and how potent it could be in November?
Well, I think the election coming up in November is a choice that people across the country have of who they want. At this point, after Roe versus Wade, the power has returned to the people, and it's going to be pivotal, and I would think this is the tipping scale. This decision is going to mobilize every American because it's not just about women, it's about families, it's about family planning, it's about privacy. And I think this issue is mobilizing every corner of our state, and it will mobilize, I think, more people to take more action into protecting that right to privacy and that fundamental right to reproductive care.
I just want to go back to that last question about expanding access here in Minnesota. Planned Parenthood is also doing work on this. They've successfully launched telehealth medication abortion in Minnesota, which serves patients across the state wherever they live. They have increased physician staffing in Minnesota so that they can see more patients in person. And they're recruiting and training new physicians in Iowa and Nebraska so that they can see patients there as long as the bans have not gone into effect in that area. They've also hired private navigators who can help individual patients access resources and the funds like Shayla's fund and support so that they can get an appointment. It is really the work of the coalition together to increase this capacity, to bring more attention to it, to raise the funds that are needed and get them to the organizations that can help patients receive care.
To your question, Eric Escala, this is Erin Murphy.
Oh, I see that.
Good to see you, sir. Anticipating this decision in the earlier part of this year, as our caucus members have been working to prepare for the election and to recruit candidates, we have seen an influx of candidates who are pro-choice running across the state of Minnesota. And in the places where we are competing in this next election, every candidate is a pro-choice candidate, and we are on a path to win a pro-choice majority. And to quote Leader Lopez-Franson, when we do, we're going to work with the majority in the House and with Governor Walz to codify Roe here in the state of Minnesota. And as I have been traveling across the state, this is an issue that is coming up all over the state of Minnesota. And as the recent polling tells us, the majority of Minnesotans do not support the overturning of Roe that the court did today. And I do believe this is going to be a very front and center issue in the election.
So would this be enough to get somebody who wasn't going to vote in the midterm to vote in the midterm?
Yes, it will,
Why do you say that?
because people are showing up and talking about this issue. It is motivating them. In the past, I think we've always talked about this issue as a potential and as a threat, but now we know that the court has stripped away basic human rights from Minnesotans, and I believe they've sent the message that the fix to this is in the states and state legislatures, and they know with their vote, they're going to set the course for their future and their rights, and they're going to show up in this election and vote.
Senator Murphy, did you stay there for a second? You talk about the polling, and so that I think you can find lots of districts across the state where a majority of voters support abortion rights, and then a anti-abortion senator or House member is elected by those same people. So we can surmise that there are people who are not voting that issue. We started to talk about that a little bit, but this took a theoretical threat and made it into a direct threat. Can you explain why you think that would be potent to perhaps get some of those voters to vote top of mind that issue?
I do believe in the past, people have believed Supreme Court justices who have said Roe is settled law, that they wouldn't violate that precedent, and yet they have. And they have upturned 50 years of precedent, and they've upturned 50 years of our expectations to the rights of privacy, autonomy, and self-determination. I do believe that that will motivate voters in this next election in a real way, and I will look to my colleagues, especially from Gender Justice, to speak more profoundly to the polling.
Just from a community standpoint, I think a lot of folks have not understood the gravity to the power of the courts. And people have trusted that, the Supreme Court won't overturn this. And people's eyes and ears are open today, and they're looking for ways to actually plug in and become more politically active. So there's people that just vote and don't pay attention. But I think after this decision, just with the people that we're working with, people are asking more in-depth questions and wanting to get more information to make informed decisions. And so I believe that people are not just going to vote because of a familiar face, but they're going to vote because they're motivated by what happened today and understand that nothing is safe and that they need to take part in what's happening in our state. And this is an issue that impacts old folks, young folks, and I'll just say for my friends today that I've never seen post anything politically, they're like, Abina, what do I do today? And so people are paying attention and ready to take action. I think we don't need to underestimate that. This is a very motivating issue for people across many different intersections in our state.
One other point is that the Supreme Court took away a right today. When Americans think about what the Supreme Court does, we think about expanding our rights. We think about expanding our right to marry who we love. We think about how to expand the right to vote and who is counted as a citizen here. But today, we took a step back. And that's just something that isn't done before. And I think that's something that people are really thinking about and are motivated by. And it's not just women, it's everyone is thinking about how this impacts them and what right is next.
Yeah, to polling, I'll just point people to some recent polling from Perry Undem. It's national polling, but obviously was done before today, and only 17% of Americans kind of had this on their radar, thought that it was possible, thought it might happen. So even just the amount of awareness that existed before today was actually quite low. And 2/3 of people in their polling said that the Supreme Court overturning Roe would motivate them to vote. So I think, before today, we had some very good signs that this is a motivating issue for people nationally. And I'm sure, lots of people will be out in the field doing polling after today, and we'll all get to see the results of that soon. Other questions?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I know, I heard you.